Hi, friends. This is Stripped Down Spirituality, the podcast where I, Reverend Lezli Goodwin, attempt to answer your questions about spirituality, new thought, life, whatever comes up. Delighted that you have found us, and I hope you find something of value here. So it has been 2 weeks since we've had a podcast, and that was because I took last weekend off for my birthday. Had a lovely birthday weekend. I was supposed to have a minor surgery that got postponed by the surgeon, so I got to have a nice, fun weekend. Had lunch with a girlfriend, spent time with family. It was really good. And now I am back. Um, I am trying a new thing with the microphone since I kept whapping it before. I'm going to try holding it. I know that there are people who become mildly irate when they see people holding clip-on microphones. We're going to work hard to just be okay with it and just see how the sound is. I would love for you to give me your feedback. Is the sound better with this microphone, or is it better if it's held this way, or does it not make a difference? I do have a little bit of a hoarse throat, so that's not the microphone's fault, just in case you are wondering. This is episode 9. We've been doing this for 9 weeks now. And like I've said, I will keep doing it as long as you keep submitting questions for me to answer. So we have at least, I think, 2 or 3 more episodes worth of questions in the can. If you have a question that you haven't asked yet, or that bubbles up even as we're watching this, there is a link in the show notes, which is in the description underneath this video, as to where you can submit that question. Don't worry if it's appropriate. If I don't think it's appropriate, I just won't answer it. But the only bad question, as the adage goes, is the question that goes unasked. So go ahead and ask. And I'm going to do my best to answer 5 questions. So let's see how we go here. My computer is right down here with the question. So when I look away, that's what I'm looking at. And here's the first question. And it is a little bit spicy, friends. It says, "Hi, another CSL minister here. There's been a lot of chatter amongst the ministers about the changes to the CSL education program. Would you be willing to comment on how you feel about the changes?" Okay, so I'm going to catch you up a little bit in case you aren't paying rapt attention to the changes in the CSL education system, which is probably pretty much everybody that isn't a minister that teaches. So up until, I would say, maybe 5 years or so ago, the CSL accredited classes for which you get a certificate and count towards things like qualifying for practitioner training, those classes were between 8 and 10 weeks long, and they were very focused on specific topics. There was one history class called The Roots of Science of Mind, and it focused on 3 particular philosophers or writers that Ernest Holmes studied with or read from. They were just very specific. They were done in a very specific way. And a lot of those classes had existed in the CSL curriculum for some of them 30 years, most of them more than 10 years. There were pieces of them that were pretty out of date, and they were a really tried and true process for moving people from newbies, fresh people to science of mind through the practitioner training process. In the last few years, there's been a big push to turn over the classes, to bring in new classes, to make them shorter, to meet the needs of changing adults in modern life, with all of the things going on, to include some things that are more newly recognized as important, like trauma-informed teaching and learning styles. And there's just a lot that has shifted in the intervening 20 to 30 years. And so as someone who is a really avid teacher and someone who writes classes, including one of the classes that's part of the new CSL curriculum, I do have opinions about it. I think it's good in a lot of ways. I think it's good that that we're bringing in new, fresh material, that there's a conscious energy towards citing writers and teachers and philosophers of multiple ethnicities, greater balance in gender represented, and more up-to-date psychology information that underpins the way we work with our students. There's, in my opinion, a higher focus on more kinds of learning, more optional activities. Things, to my understanding, are more immediately usable. I feel like they're more approachable by new students. I do have one place of concern, and I have voiced this concern noisily, if you will, to our education team. And that is, as the classes get shorter and inherently less intense because they are shorter and there just isn't as much room for things, the practitioner requirements have not shifted. And I do feel like if we're going to have shorter classes, that we're going to need to require more classes for people to qualify for professional practitioner training. And I already have seen with the last class that came through my practitioner training program that they came in less prepared, for example, to do a really strong spiritual mind treatment. And so I'm hoping that those, and I'm trusting that those requirements, those guidelines are being looked at. I also want to put in a caveat, and I know a lot of ministers have said this, that it is very rare that I teach a class exactly as it is offered up in the curriculum. We have the freedom, and I would say responsibility, to cater our classes to the people that are in our classroom. So if there is an activity that doesn't meet the needs of the group of the people I'm with, I add that in somewhere. If there is something that I feel like is somehow out of alignment for me, I replace it. I do something else. If there's something that I think is really needed, I add it in. And I think that that's going to be different for every class, for every body of people we bring together. It's going to be different. And so expecting any curriculum to meet every need all the time, it just isn't terribly realistic. As a curriculum developer myself, I know that's not a realistic ask. So that's where I'm at with it. I have not had a problem with any of the classes, of the new classes that I've taught, though I definitely have changed some aspects out. And honestly, as a creative, I'm probably going to do that no matter what. There's always going to be something that I think should be included that just isn't there. And I take full freedom and responsibility for switching those things out. And I hope every other teacher does as well. And that is my answer for that. Thanks for a good question. As someone who is part of Science of Mind, if you've taken some classes, I would love to hear what your opinion is of the classes that you've taken. Do you feel like they're meeting your needs? Question number 2. What role does gratitude play in spiritual growth? It plays so many roles, but I'm going to focus in on one particular role. So when I think spiritual growth, I think like overarching, right? I'm looking for a shift from a mindset that is pessimistic, demanding, focus on results now, and looking for where's the shoe going to drop? Where's the hang up? What's the catch? That kind of an energy, arcing over toward a general assumption that the universe is working for our good, a sense of possibility, a sense of openness, a sense of surrender into divine timing and recognition that sometimes we don't get, pardon me, sometimes we don't get exactly what we want in the exact timing that we want for reasons that may later become clear, but really are for our own good. So a move from kind of a, how am I going to get what I want? Why is the world trying to take it from me place, over to the universe has got my back. Spirit is where I am. Everything is working out for my good, and I can rest into that. And one of the things that gratitude does is helps shift across that spectrum, recognizing what is working, what has worked, what is making life better, what is helping me understand. The gratitude for those things changes our worldview, changes what we are focusing on. And as we shift what we're focusing on, our mentality changes and we become more open. So I think a conscious practice of gratitude, not simply being like, yeah, I'm grateful, but actively looking for, say 3 new things to be grateful for in a particular day. Or if something is not going well, what's one thing you can be grateful for in that situation? It is rewiring our brains to see the world differently. And I think that a huge piece of Science of Mind is about shifting our perspective into that fresher, more open way of seeing the world. And when we are that kind of open, then we have the opportunity for the divine to come in and shift things around for us. If we're holding so tight to everything in our world that we need to control, the divine doesn't really have any wiggle room to come in and support us. If we are knowing that life is working for our good, we can relax that white knuckled grip and the divine can come in and support us more fully, sometimes in ways we don't even know to ask. So among the many, many things that gratitude is good for, that is one of them. And I think it's a primary one. If you have a gratitude practice, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Do you have a gratitude journal? Is it a 3 thoughts a day? What is it that you do to help you anchor into your gratitude to keep you moving in that direction of spiritual maturity? Okay, question 3. I'm considering bleh. I'm considering taking advanced consciousness studies at my center starting this fall. I don't think I'm interested in becoming a licensed practitioner. Can you outline the benefits for me? Okay, yes, this is a hot topic for me right now. I'm super excited that somebody asked this. Um, if you have been in Centers for Spiritual Living for a long time, you would probably be more familiar with the term Prac One. The training program to become a professional licensed practitioners is 2 years, and they're 2 freestanding classes. One used to be called Prac One. We now call it Advanced Consciousness Studies. And the second year used to be Prac Two, and we now call it Professional Practitioner Training or Professional Practitioner Studies. And part of that switch up was really to encourage people who did not have an interest in becoming professional licensed practitioners to take that first year anyway, because it is the single class that has the most opportunity to move us. I'm going to go back to my hand motion in that arc towards spiritual maturity. It is the primary coursework that we have to deepen fully into the science of mind as a personal practice and to shift how we feel on the inside of our own lives. So, what are the benefits that I think somebody would get out of this course that does not intend to become a professional practitioner? First off, I would say really mastering spiritual mind treatment. Because it's a 27-week class, which I realize is a really long class. Part of the benefit is it's a really long class. Because it is so long, we have a lot of time to dig into the skills of spiritual mind treatment, to get gentle correction and open up to the why. I think most of us, if we've taken a couple classes, we get the basic steps, right? And we get that there are rules, but we don't always understand why those rules are what they are. And the length of that class gives us a lot of room to practice and to get feedback and to understand the fundamentals. In Science of Mind, spiritual mind treatment is our primary differentiator. It's the one thing that we offer that really no other spirituality offers. It's our tool that that we have that is different and a little bit unique. And so I obviously think that it's important as a Science of Mind minister. Another thing that we get is the opportunity, because we've got so much time, to methodically go through our thoughts and beliefs and ideas and programming over many, many topics in our lives and to recontextualize them through the lens of science of mind. So we have a tendency as humans to form opinions and ideas and beliefs and processes on the inside of ourselves based on what we believed at the time that we were introduced to the topic. And then not really look at them again because we know that like it's a gelled thing in our personality. And in this class, we get the opportunity to take them out again and to start to notice what those limiting beliefs or mistaken beliefs are as we look at them fresh. So, for example, someone might say, well, when I was growing up, I know that as the population changed in my neighborhood, the crime rate went up. And my parents were really upset that as it became less of a white working class, middle class community and became more diverse, that we had to start locking our doors and things like that. And that's just what happens. And because they heard adults say that when they were children, they just filed it as that is what happened without any nuance or context, because children don't really have nuance or context as to what else might have been changing in the neighborhood over that time. And it might just get filed as, unless it's all white people, it's more dangerous or there's more crime. This gives us an opportunity to kind of open that book back up and see what happened through a filter with more information, more knowledge, and to actively decide, is that a belief that I still believe? Is that something that I want to continue to believe? Or is that something that I can recognize maybe isn't true for me now or isn't as black and white as I thought that it was? It can be beliefs about family, money, sex, relationships, health, our bodies, death and dying, the nature of the divine, how the universe works, all the many, many topics, life purpose. Through most of advanced consciousness studies every week is another big area of life where we might have formed our opinions when we were children, and we have running the programming in our subconscious mind is, things our parents said or stuff we saw on TV or the opinion of our third grade teacher. And this gives us the opportunity to reclaim empowerment over what we believe and how we believe. And I will say for me personally, it is the single thing that most changed how I show up in the world. It changed how I parented. It changed how I dealt with extended family, how I approached things that I wanted for my own life, what I thought was possible. I got very brave. I started singing in public again, which is something I hadn't done for a long, long, long time. I started contemplating becoming a minister. It took me a little while to get there, but that's when I started thinking about it. Started wanting to do more public speaking, which I hadn't done, since college probably. And it opened doors that I had closed without realizing I was closing them. And as you're hearing me say this, you might be thinking of things you used to love that you closed the door on without any conscious recognition that you were letting go of a piece of yourself that mattered. And you might also be recognizing that there are areas of your life that you really haven't reprocessed with what you know now, with what you've learned now. So I think for anyone who wants to practice science of mind to the fullest depth, this is a class that can help you get there. And I don't think that there's another class that really has the same capacity. So I don't know if you will take the class and at the end of that decide, oh, it turns out I do want to become a professional practitioner and choose to take the second year. But whether you do or not is completely independent of what it can do for you and your life. So yes, I think that people who are serious about science of mind and serious about their own spiritual growth can gain a lot from advanced consciousness studies. Whew. The throat is throating, friends. Let's see if my voice will hold up for the next few questions. 2 more. How do we align our personal will with a higher or divine will? I have one word for that, and it is life-affirming. So our personal will, what we want, what we're willing to do. Really, that's where the word will is, right? What are we willing to do in our life to create what we want? And then there is the divine will or higher will, which is, the consciousness of the divine. And how do we align with that? I think sometimes people approach this from the perspective of it is selfish to go with my personal will. I need to listen to divine will. And I don't, first of all, I don't think that. Second, I think that they are closer than we tend to believe. We tend to see ourselves as humans as worse than we are, as more selfish and more harm causing than we are. But if we are seeking the answer to the question, is my personal will in alignment with divine will? The word for me is life affirming. Is what I am seeking, claiming, doing, being, saying positive? Does it help myself or someone else, or does it hinder good things? Am I trying to take something that is someone else's? That is not life affirming. Am I harming someone in order to get what I want? That is not life affirming. Life affirming is always going to be moving us in the direction of more positivity, more growth, more good. I personally do not believe in this be humble, be selfless, be a martyr. That's the way to be good. To me, that is a hangover from religions I was taught as a child that really don't resonate for me at this time. And they're in there, right? They're really in there. And so that's one of the things I worked on in advanced consciousness studies was letting go of the remnant pieces of what I was taught as a child that no longer resonates for me, and turning over to this idea that if I am an expression of the divine, which I believe I am, and Science of Mind says that I am, and most forms of spirituality say that I am, then if I am seeking something that is good for myself or someone else, something that is life affirming, that is inherently in line with divine will. So I invite you to take that into your examination, into your questioning about your life. If you're checking in with yourself, are you life affirming? Are you positive affirming for yourself and for the people around you? If you are, then I say you don't need to worry about it. You are, in fact, in alignment with divine will. And question 5, how can someone trust the process when results aren't immediate? Oh, friends, results are functionally never immediate. So there's that. They can sometimes be pretty quick, but it's rare that they're immediate, right? So how do you trust the process? You decide to. And every time you find yourself questioning or in doubt, you decide to trust the process again, or do a practice that reminds you to trust the process. What kind of practices might that be? I'm so glad you asked. I could hear you all the way across the internet. They might be meditating on the good. They might be doing another spiritual mind treatment or another form of prayer. They might be doing a releasing prayer, that 70 times 7, that comes from, has hand motions, and comes from the fear to faith process, releasing the doubt or the fear that the process isn't working. It could be reaching back into that gratitude practice. It could be remembering times when it felt like you couldn't trust the process, but then it ended up working out. It could be talking to a practitioner, talking to a minister, talking to another Science of Mind friend, and just recentering in the practice over and over. And the thing is, when you do that enough times, it gets easier because you're building a library of examples of mental equivalents that you can trust and lean back into when you're wondering if that's really going to work out. So an example of this for me would be, I found myself in a little bit of an in-between space as I was getting ready to graduate from ministerial school, and I had been operating as an almost full-time volunteer at my spiritual center, as well as making my living as a practitioner. And I wanted a letter of call. I wanted to graduate and go into my panels with a letter of call at my center in hand. That is what I wanted. That is what we were being encouraged to ask for in ministerial school. And the senior minister at the time, one of my primary teachers, somebody who literally changed my life with the way she taught me, was from a different school of thinking where you don't even discuss this until the person is licensed. And it's never the student that brings it up. It's always the minister that brings it up. And it's inappropriate for a student to bring it up. And so we kind of hit a wall, where what I was wanting was deemed an inappropriate ask. And so I just didn't know what was going to happen. And I was very much in that I have to trust the process that I'm going to graduate and have a job, so that I can continue working and earn my ordination. And it was not always easy. And I definitely did a lot of practitioner sessions and work with my mentor and work with my dean in getting clear on what was going to work for me, and staying in the process and trying not to be so frustrated with not knowing what was going to happen, not being able to control what's going to happen. And by the end of it all, friends, through a bunch of shifts and changes, some of which I could never have conceived of, by the time I was licensed, I had 2 letters of call. One as a staff minister at another center to help them with some technology development stuff, and one at my spiritual center, not as a staff minister, but as a co-spiritual leader, as an acting co-spiritual leader, because that minister actually chose to leave the center. And another woman who was also graduating at the same time as me, we teamed up and were acting co-leaders for the year that we were actively searching for a new spiritual leader. And then we actually ended up being hired as co-spiritual leaders for a couple of more years before some changes took place. And she ended up taking solo spiritual director position, and I ended up stepping into associate minister, landing in exactly the job I have right now and have for the last, I want to say 5 years, is exactly the job that I wanted when I had to trust the process. And it was so hard to do so. So, if I can do it, you can do it. I'm not that special. I'm just this lady. If I can do it, you can do it. Truly, truly, I could not mean that more. It's just a matter of continuing to re-enter the process when we feel like our frustration is pulling us out of it. Just get back into it in any way possible, over and over, until the results show up. That's how it goes. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's exactly what you're asking for, and sometimes it is wildly something that you would never have even known to ask for in a million years. And those are our 5 questions for today. What am I reading? Not a whole heck of a lot. Believe it or not, I've been on a little bit of a serious reading hiatus, birthday week and all that. And my daughter is staying with me. So we've been doing very important things like watching the new season of Avatar: The Last Airbender, which was very good. And hey, the new Drag Race Canada season. So not so much reading. I am still working on, in my silly books, I am still working on the Moonstone Bay Cozy Mysteries. I'm on book 14. That is by Amanda M. Lee. If you like silly books with witches and shifters and sirens and, a shark shifter. There's a shark shifter now. He's a relatively new addition to the cast. Then you might enjoy that. I would just encourage you to be reading, to be consuming things that entertain and calm you, and also things that deepen you. What's up next for me? Obsessing over my new grandbaby is, taking primary position in my life. In just a couple weeks, we have Ancient Wisdom and Science of Mind starting up. That's a new class. It's the first time I'm teaching it. It starts on July 21st. The link to learn more is in the description. And I'm continuing to prep our next Advanced Consciousness Study class, which is going to start in October. And the information to know more about that is also in the description. And in case you are curious, I mentioned that I made my living for a couple of years as a full-time practitioner. If you are interested in working with me personally as a practitioner or spiritual mentor, the information to find out about that is also in the description. I do have 1 or 2 spots available right now. Sometimes I do not, but I do right now. So if you are interested, this would be a great time to check it out. If you find this podcast enjoyable, I invite you to like the video, to subscribe. You can hit the little bell icon, and that'll give you a notification if I put up a new video. I don't put up a whole bunch of videos. It's usually one of these podcasts, one of my talks from a Sunday, or the occasional short that I will add that's spirituality centered. Sometimes ableism work centered, because I do experience life with multiple chronic illnesses. And I find that the interaction, that the interchange between science of mind or spirituality and chronic illness is just a really rich area for growth and discussion. And hey, you're welcome to share any of this with friends if you see a post on Facebook or Instagram. If you want to repost it to let people know that it exists, I would sure appreciate that. And once again, if you have a question that you would like to ask, the information for that is also in the description. I hope you have a fantastic weekend doing things that you love with people you love. I intend to knit, hang out with my family, and be in the pool, because that's where I'm happiest. I hope that you are doing whatever makes you happiest. Have a great rest of the weekend.